Okay. I don't know if I saved it, but I'll go to the blog and get it.
I'm a little bit less worried about this.
Yeah, this is right now my other class. So I understand.
So I'm just copying this from the blog. Stored procedures. I just wanted to do a quick review because it's been a holiday week in between, right? We missed Monday.
And you also did that's
Right, so we did.
The way that you could do one more that didn't, the one that you did with hash and seed really confused me because there was a lot of stuff that I didn't understand, like hash.
Oh.
Seed. But that's okay. I'll figure that out on my own.
So those are functions. So the hash.
Well, I didn't even understand, but I'm just wondering if you can do another example, if you have another example written in it, without using things like seed and hash.
Well, so the reason we did seed and hash is basically because you should never have a plain text password.
So I didn't even understand the password tonight, so I got very confused.
So I'll show you what a hash.
But yeah. Where did that come from?
What? I just copied it from the stored stored procedures, Wednesday, May 25th, 2016 on the blog. So I'm going to just do a select star from person. Oh, I'm in the wrong database. This is what a hash is.
Yeah, he explained to me because I was the whole I got lost early on because you were referencing things that maybe other people did, but I didn't.
Well, you ask when you're doing it. Feel free to ask. But so this is the idea is that you should never have a plain text.
Yes.
So this is the hash, and it's a built-in function. So up where I wrote my function, I just used the built-in function.
Also, maybe as long as you're willing to take a question or two.
Yeah, always.
I went over this several times this weekend because I usually have to sort of self-teach it.
Yeah. So the point when we insert the person.
Well, you had done the first example and then you had done the second example. And it started with create function of the hash password. And then it went to the procedure, creating a service,
right,
which we later had to alter.
So one of the things that I wanted to show you is that that you could use functions in stored procedures.
I understand that. I understand that because I wrote that as a note. But creating a function, was this necessary for the stored procedure because we did reference the word new password for later, or was it separate?
Well, so in this, notice when we do this. So when we get the hash, this is the function that we had over there.
Yeah, so that's where I saw that connected, so I figured that was part of it. But I
right.
guess, so basically from the beginning I was lost. Not at the big picture of what you were doing, but the minutia of what you were doing because I didn't understand. Like I understand you were making a function and then a procedure and then this. But within that, this is the details I didn't understand.
Yeah, well, I mean, as I said, the hash.
So I've never experienced that term or.
Oh, a hash.
Yes, or how a hash is made of. So anyway, I think it was just something that most people knew, and most people probably did know, but I didn't know. And so, what is this SHA-2 underscore?
It's a hashing algorithm.
Okay.
So it's built in.
It's
right.
Just SHA-2.
Right. I mean, the way you find it is you go online and say, what is the current hashing algorithm? I mean, that's how you.
I didn't know if it was supposed to be used. I had no idea what that was. That was one of the things.
Right. So if you go online and you look, this is one. There's like a half a dozen different hashing. And again, the function of a hash is just an algorithm that takes your word and produces this long, incoherent string of hexadecimal numbers. And the reason why there are several of them is that after a while, hackers break them.
Yeah.
So they figure out the algorithm, and then if you know the algorithm, you can reverse it.
So would you mind going down and just doing that, like explaining why you did what you did at each point?
No, I don't mind. So which?
Generally, I mean, it doesn't have to be so involved if this takes the whole class, right? So starting from create function, I understand that you're creating a function and there's going to be two parameters.
Right. Now, part of the reason why, so this again, this is the best thing. So one of the parameters is the seed. Again, it's just considered best practice not to just hash the password, but to add a random number or a random string of things to it.
Yeah.
And again, what the purpose of that is that then, if you knew that we were using SH2512, you might not be able to decipher what's there, but you could go through a dictionary and you could hash every word and see if it matches.
But you put the seed in front.
But if you put the seed in front, then it's random, then it won't.
And where is the seed in this one?
So the seed it could come in as a, you could just enter it. What I did, let me come over here. In programmability, and I'll need to zoom for you to see that. So I had actually previously written a function to provide a seed. There is under scalar functions, there's get seed. And I'm just going to script the function as create to a new query window so you can see it. I could not make the random work. So this is a long, complicated thing, which basically just, let's unzoom, just takes the different parts of the time. So notice we're getting the milliseconds, and we're getting the second and the minute and the hour. And I'm just putting it together as a string of integers. And then I'm just hooking it onto that's where I get the seed. I didn't show this last time because
I don't think that really necessarily answers the question of your thought proper, like what you were doing is you were doing create function and then.
So we want to bring in
procedure and then using the function in the start procedure.
Right. So we'll walk through the.
Yeah, and then the catch part, I think I get that. The try catch part.
So if you think through.
Yeah, that would be great if you just did a quick what you.
All right. So.
Create function underscore hash password.
Right. So we need a function to do the password. It's better. It's something that I'm going to have to do in a variety of places, so it makes sense to do it as a function and just call the function where I want it. Because we also need that if we're going to log in from somewhere. We need something that would match the pass. So you need to rehash it to match the current hash to see if they match, right? That's how you log in. You match this to, and you rehash their password. Take the seed out of here. So let's look at the seed.
I don't even know what this is. No.
It's that thing that you add to it, right? So this is added to their password and hashed. So when you log in, you pull this out, you take their current password, you rehash it and see if it matches this hash.
So
if it does, it's a successful login.
So the seed is the app password and varchar 50 is whatever their password is.
Right, it's whatever their current password is.
Okay.
And this is the seed which I generated elsewhere. You could use this function by just typing in something.
Okay. So that's a function of creating a hash password as a marriage of those two things.
Right. So when you come down here, the seed is concatenated with the password.
Their new password. So this is the app new password is their hash
is
password.
Equal to the seed plus the password. Okay. And then, well, go ahead.
Got it. No, that's good. I think he also explained that to me. Yes.
Yeah, and then the hash, we declare a variable or binary because it's that huge.
Password is the one that's the marriage of the two. That's called new password. And
right.
Hashed is something else.
Hashed is what the new password. Notice the new password is here. It's when that new password is processed by this algorithm.
Gets hashed.
Yes, it gets hashed.
Oh, okay.
And that's what we return, and that's what it looks like at the end.
I think all those individual steps I didn't understand.
Yeah, and that's I don't think I explained them much because it's sort of just was a
I
kind
think
of a
probably
given.
most people knew, I just didn't.
I doubt that, actually.
So again, just really quickly, so the function puts together the seed with their password, then you declare the new password, which is that combination.
Right.
And then.
And so the function does nothing else except that. It just hashes.
Okay. And then you declare a new password, and then you set what it's equal to, which is the concatenation of those.
Right. Now you could, I mean, you know, my naming convention sucks, so you might have, it could have been a better names for those or something. But
You mean you named it at new password?
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay, I
Those,
see.
those are not keywords. Those are just variable names.
True. Okay, and then you declared what the sum of those two is, and you call that out hashed. Okay.
So this is the new password together,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the hash, this is just another variable. And it is a variable to store the result of this.
I thought that that's what's going on, like a couple things happening, like one thing then another to the password, like a
Right.
combination of things and then a rehash.
Anytime you have an app in front of something, it's a variable.
Okay.
Something I made up.
I think I get that. I think I was struggling with what hash and seed and hash bytes and that
Right.
SHA thing was, so I didn't know what to hang it on.
Yeah, so this is basically a function. And this, yeah, this is, you just have to look it up.
Okay.
Now, there's some older ones, as I said, that are still available, but are broken. So you don't want to use them.
Makes a lot more sense.
Can you script hash bytes to a new query window like you can with a function that you?
I don't know. That's an interesting question.
And then I have another question. Well, actually, we're done with that question.
So I'd have to go to system functions. Probably security. No.
It's not, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I have actually no idea.
with my rudimentary understanding of math, that makes sense.
Let me see. See, it's not giving me script as for the built-in functions. I mean, it's not giving me that as a possibility. So.
I'm sure it exists somewhere.
Yeah. But for one thing, they wouldn't want you to, well, the hash bytes, they might be able to do, but they wouldn't. This has got to be private.
Yep. How can that be private?
So I'm not sure. That's a good question. When they create a hash thing, I mean, it's obviously got to be shared among, although they probably get it as a binary. So they probably never see the algorithm, right? So they only get it as a compiled binary file, so that was yes. So that only the people that created it know the algorithm. But I'm sure that it can be. That's what I would guess, is that it's only distributed as a binary.
So
it's an
there's like
executable.
incorruptible somewhere, right?
Yeah. Well, somebody who's probably their financial well-being depends on his security, so I'm not sure you would trust him just to trust them. But I mean, for everyone that writes a secure hash, there's probably hundreds that are trying to break it. So, or thousands. Does that help with that? So then, this was just because I needed some information, right?
I think I got that part.
All right, so when we did the stored procedure, we wanted to add a new person. And the reason why I did the hash is that if you add a new person, part of what you need to add is their hashed password.
Okay.
These are all fields that we need to add. All right, and where we get them from is basically by just looking at the tables and figuring out what we need to add. There are some things that you can automate. So like I don't have date added because you can just do that as the current date, get date. We could have added other things here. I did home phone, but you could have done cell phone and etc. These are means that you can leave it out. So like if we'd added at cell phone, at work phone, whatever we wanted here, we could have made equal null on them so that they don't have to have them. Might have been a better thing to do that. Typically, this would all be entered in a form somewhere. I mean, rather than the way we entered it down below. Then we did it in several stages because I was hoping that would be less confusing. Maybe it was more.
I actually understand the backbone of what you were doing. I think I
Okay.
was confused about the content in the beginning part.
Okay.
But the rest seems to make sense for you. Feel free to go over
Yeah, I will, because it's been since last weekend and there's a holiday in between.
it.
So this is the last thing we added, right? Is to check to see if they exist or not. And I'm not sure if it's a robust enough test. We're basically making sure that their email and their last name are the same. So if they got married, this might not work. So when you do that, you need to test carefully, I guess, what was there, what you want to test. But we're just checking to see if they're already in there. If they are already in there, you might want to do something different, but we just say they already exist. And then we return, which kills the stored procedure at that point. The word return is the end, no matter what. Begin and end are like curly braces for the if. This is the condition of the if, the subquery. And then we begin what happens if this is true, and this is the end. So if this is true, then we print that and quit the query. Does that make sense? That was the very last thing we did.
Yeah, the numbers is create the password hash. I was confused. Where did you get DBO.fx_gets?
So that already existed. That's in the functions. So we didn't actually write that. That was the one I just, that was the one with the dates and all of that. So I already had that function built in here. So I just used it. Otherwise, we'd have to come up with something. So either build a new function, which we could have done. But this gives us not really a random number. It's just taking, actually it's taking what usually is the seed for a random number. If you use a random number function in C# or something, what it uses is the milliseconds on the clock as the seed. Because again, computers can't do random numbers. They just go through an algorithm where they try to make it too complicated for you to follow the logic.
So what this part is doing is using the function.
It's using the function and it's creating the hash because we need it before we do the insert. Yeah.
Their binary, you can set that binary thing to any length.
I think you can set it to any length. All of the examples I had it as 500. I don't know why. I think you could set it to a lesser length, although if the number overflows it, depend. The hashes are 512 is a fairly large. Binary, I'm not sure. I will admit I did this because that's what the examples had.
I was just curious, because isn't that declare password? You're basically in that statement just allocating space.
Right, we're just allocating space. We're just declaring a variable of this data type of this size.
Okay. And then the set hash actually fills.
This actually calls the function and fills that variable. Does that make sense? You know what? Actually, I think I can maximize. Somebody adjusted the view so it actually fits.
Now, I do have one.
Sure.
For the values, why use
What?
set last name?
So actually, that's actually a good point. You have to. You can't just assign something. I can't say @seed equals. You always have to say set or select. If you want to give a variable a value, it always has to be set or select. It just won't allow you to just assign it.
Okay, well, we're doing.
We're saying set the value of this is equal to this.
Okay, I got that part. Right, but I'm talking about our insert text provider. Right, you're inserting person name, person email.
Right.
Does that go along with that?
Yes. So
now I was wondering why then the values on that, the value statement are having as opposed to person last name.
Oh, you could name them whatever.
So the value statement.
So the values, where they come from?
Yes.
They come from up here.
It all has to be in the same order, right? The insert, the values, and the.
They actually don't have to be in the same order, but they do have to be the same words. I mean,
The same.
so these do not have to be the same thing as the field names.
Okay, so now, my question is, that's one big,
It's a list of what they call parameters.
okay, and all that goes with our function.
And our inserts and
And our
right.
hash and our.
These are all things that you have to enter into when you call the store procedure.
Mhm,
The
okay.
store procedure has parameters. All of these have to be there unless they say equal null, and you can leave it out. Okay. Actually, if they have an equal CI, if they have a default value, you can leave them out too, as long as you want the default value. So when we come down here, all of the values in the insert are from the parameter list, except get date, which just generates a date. It gets the current date according to the computer.
Okay, and we do not have to use all the fields that the store procedure asks for.
Well, you probably want to use them all. I don't think there's any I didn't use. I don't think there's any fields I didn't use. So when I come down here, for the address, I use, at street, at city, and those are all in that list too. And then
Oh,
the
okay.
home phone and the key we get up here with the ident current. Right?
Okay.
Declare at key int equals ident current.
You're basically inserting in a different.
Right, and so all of those fields get used, but they get used
They're
in different places.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, oh, forget it.
go ahead.
You know how you were talking about you need to set or select to get a value for the
Right.
seed, for instance, and I was wondering why you just did declare here, but I realized it's because you weren't giving it a value.
Well, we are giving it a value. It is possible to assign it when you declare it.
To assign a
To
value.
assign a value when you declare it.
If it's using that table.
Right, so you have the declare keyword, at key, the data type, equals, and then you can assign it a
But
value.
without having to do the set,
Right, that's the only time where you don't have to use a set. That's actually a good
when you
point.
use that ident.
Yeah, well, not the ident current. It's when you declare the value with it, on the declare.
Well, because here you had written declare at seed int. If you scroll up, you'll see what I'm talking about, higher.
Right, so, but I could have probably, if I wanted to, where did I?
Right there, equals DVO, you could have done that.
I could have done that.
And
No, those are fine.
I have
Okay,
to
don't
understand
you
this
declare
minute
key?
genres and get done.
person is what?
It's a table.
Okay, so you're assigning a key, is that assigns a key to the whole person table?
No, it gets the key from the current insert. So when I insert this person, it generates a key, right? It auto-generates a key. We need that key to tie these tables. It's a foreign key in these tables. So we don't know what that key is because we've just inserted the person. It's a brand new key. This is only true of auto numbers, right? It's much more complicated if there wasn't an auto number because we'd have to go query the table to figure out what the newest key is. Or if we were generating the key by some sort of combination of things, we might be able to have it there, right? Might have to insert it anyway. But this gets the last auto number generated in the table person, which would be this, and assigns it to the key value. So when we do add key down here, we've got the foreign key, and the same down here, we've got the foreign key. They all tie it to person.
Okay. One more question.
Sure.
So the person table, does it generate a field, person key?
Yes.
Okay, so there'll be a field called person key on it, that you don't really put there. I mean,
In fact, it won't let you put it there.
Mm.
You can't insert into an auto number. Yeah. And there will be, yes, and there will be a, well, it isn't generated there. It's generated when you
Yeah,
insert that.
right, yeah.
And then this one will have a person address key, right?
Mm.
And this one will have a contact key.
Would that break if you ran both inserts or all three inserts at the same time and change the order of the declare, at key, and edit current?
Yes, if you declared this down here, this would be meaningless. And it would, first of all, they even let you create it would be a compiler. So you want to do this after the key, after the table is created that has the key that you need for the foreign keys. And this is not an uncommon thing where so basically when we insert a person, we have to insert into 3 tables, right? So this is doing all 3 tables, and we're basically running it as a single thing. That's kind of what the begin try is for. So we're all doing it as a single transaction. So it's actually more efficient. Also, we have some protections there with the try catch. Yeah.
So when you're creating the procedure, you create all your variables. I don't see the at key up there.
Well, you can declare, you don't have to create them all. These variables are the ones that the user has to pass in. These are what they call the parameters. These have to come in when the user uses the stored procedure. You can declare variables that are purely internal.
Okay, so it's, okay.
Technically, these are parameters, and the ones internal are variables, but it's a minor distinction. So you can declare things that are only for internal use, like the key. We also have like the seed and the hash pass. Those are purely within the stored procedure. The user doesn't pass those in.
If we did a view for human resources, if this is declared outside of the parameters that are visible to the user, is the view available to, are these internal parameters available to view?
No.
Even if it's an administrative DBA view?
Not really.
Okay.
These are only available within the transaction as this executes, which should take like a millisecond or less.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know of any way to look at the internals of a stored procedure other than you can always right-click on it and say scripted.
So if you're creating a procedure, your parameters that follow that you're declaring those there, but anything that's internal, you have to use the keyword declare.
You do, exactly.
And it's data type, and so ident underscore current is actually a keyword also, right?
Well, ident underscore current, anything that's kind of, what would you call that color?
Magenta?
Magenta, yeah. Anything that's magenta in this, you can change the colors, is a built-in function.
It's a function. Okay, great.
Cool.
Now, this is not a built-in function, is it?
Which, the procedure?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's something we're making. One, we're making it. And it's not built in. I mean, it's not pre-built. And it's available. I mean, if you look, when you build the stored procedure, it is a part of that database until you get rid of it.
Okay. When you create the procedure, your naming convention is just so that you don't have duplicates in the tables, right?
Well, so
Business rule.
my naming convention, this business rule, is just to see what the password was.
Oh, okay. So, new person. Okay, never mind that.
So I use USP, but this could vary by where you work. USP for me is just user stored procedure as opposed to a system stored procedure. And there are literally thousands of system stored procedures.
So we're creating a stored procedure here, right?
Yes.
Okay, and we don't have to say new or anything like that if it's not there already.
No,
Okay.
you just do create.
Okay. And you also have to go out to, I guess, which would be RUPS file, right?
Yeah.
See what variables you need.
Right, and you can see that. So let's do the zoom again. And you could do anything in a stored procedure, right? So those are functions, but let's close the functions. So there's, come on, scroll up. notice there's a stored procedures. We have USP new person. And if you look at the parameters, there's a, just like we have column folders in the tables, there's a parameters folder, which lists all the parameters, right?
And those are immediately deleted upon the execution of the IDE.
Well, they're not deleted. They're,
If you close the program, they don't
they don't go
away.
away. This lives as long as the database exists.
Okay,
They're stored in the data file.
that makes sense.
So the only way to get rid of a stored procedure once you've created it is to drop it.
Okay.
That being said, they never execute unless you manually execute them or attach them to some sort of process that executes them.
Which would be a function that you create.
Well, so this is something we do this summer, but you can set up timers.
Okay,
So if it's a stored procedure that needs to run on a regular schedule, you can put it on a schedule and it will just execute whenever that time happens on the schedule.
so would it be an update or an alter that would be changing the
It
information?
depends. Like you might, it doesn't apply to this database, but say you had a retail one and there were people that owed you money,
Okay,
and you could do a stored procedure that runs however you wanted it, every week, every day, that basically sees who's more than 30 days overdue and just lists those out.
okay.
I mean, so a stored procedure could do that. There's lots of things you can do with the stored procedures. I said, if you look at them, so we wrote our own stored procedures. I'm not going to go. So if I do, these are stored procedures, system stored procedures. We're not going to go through them, but as I said, there are a lot of them.
Those are what come with SQL?
These are built into SQL. They were written by the developers of SQL.
Okay.
A lot of these run all the time. A lot of these are on schedules, and a lot of these are running, and a lot of them are used for almost everything you can do in SQL Server. Somebody wrote it. Wrote a stored procedure for it.
Where would you go to look up the usability of each one of those? Is
Well,
there documentation online?
Not real good
Or you
ones.
just go into them and look at their parameters and what they do?
So typically where I discover them is I say, how in the hell do you do this? And you go to the help and it says, use this stored procedure.
Okay. And it's always system.sp.
They're almost always system. Yeah. So these are system stored procedures, system.stored procedure.
Okay.
Sys is, notice the dot. Sys is a schema.
Okay.
It's an ownership of objects. So there's a built-in sys schema, right? So there's all these sys. Not only are all these sys stored procedures, but there's a bunch of sys views. And we did that one sys.database, right? That shows you all the databases on your server. Sys.tables, that shows you all the tables in the current database. You know, there's a lot of these sys things.
Those aren't the fully qualified names though, right?
Well, sys, it's just like we have DBO, sys is a schema.
Okay, so that is qualified.
Yeah, it is qualified. It's not fully qualified in that, although they're the same. Every database you create has all of those sys functions and sys stored procedures.
You mentioned that there's user stored procedure and there's another type of stored procedure. Will we be going into that?
Well, I mean, this is just a naming convention, user stored procedure, the ones that we make.
There's other stored procedures though?
Well, yeah, you can, well, I mean,
Besides what we just saw,
you can,
I was understanding if there's something else.
we're going to do triggers, is that what? Triggers are kind of like stored procedures,
Okay.
but they're triggered by an event.
Are we doing triggers today?
I hope so. So, now we did inserts here. I think the assignment actually calls for an update, but it's a similar kind of thing. Okay, so the tran and the try makes sense to everybody?
Which one of these is an example of a function?
So the function is up higher. And we did another function. There's actually another, the one the day before, I think we did functions. Did we, is it on this one? We did, this is just a real simple store procedure, but there's no functions on this. I think we did functions on the script before this one.
Okay.
But a function is different in that it is, you call a function in a select statement, right? A store procedure is always executed. So if you go down to the bottom, this is where we execute the store procedure.
Okay.
And what we do is we assign values to all of the parameters. I didn't use all of the parameters because, again, if they equal null or if they equal a default, you don't have to use them. You can. Anything that does not have a default, you have to provide.
How do you allow the user to edit their own information?
Well, so this would be in a form, generally. This would be on like a web form.
Okay.
Remember in 172, I know that was probably not a bit of a blur, but there was one of the things where we used a stored procedure and we just passed all these fields from a form to it.
In C,
To a stored procedure, yeah.
in Visual Studio, right?
Yes, and it could be in any language. I mean, typically, so these are variables. These could be, you can just map these to variables in any language you want, and do it. So you could have a form with text boxes for all these things, and pass the variable, pass those down, and just assign them to these.
Through data
And
contracts?
then execute. What?
Through data contracts?
Well, you can do that in the data contract is Visual Studio. You might have to do it a little differently in other languages.
Okay.
But typically, yeah, they're not going to do it in SQL Server like this, right? But you do eventually ultimately have to execute it.
So when you're creating a stored procedure that allows them to edit their own information, how do you make it?
Well, so if you want them to edit their own information, you have to do update instead of insert.
Okay.
So you would create a stored procedure just like we did, but instead of having an insert, you would have an update. I suppose I could do a simple update one. Do you want me to? It'd be a lot closer to your assignment.
Sure.
And
Sure.
then we'll do a
It
trigger.
would make you feel better.
I doubt if it would make me feel better, but it might make you guys feel better. So let's do a simple stored procedure. This stored procedure will, what do we want to update? Let's just allow them to update their address. Rather than everything, right? So I'm going to create proc. If you prefer, you can write procedure. I will do USP update address. You should name it something that you think makes sense. So if we look at in Community Assist under the tables, I'm just going to look for employee position, columns. No, that's not what I want. I want person address. So we basically need all of those, except perhaps the address key. I'm just going to drag the columns folder, and then I'll break that. And I'll get rid of a couple of them. This is dangerous if you don't get rid of a couple of things. All right.
What do you need to get rid of besides the key?
Just the key.
Okay.
And then we have to put an @ on front of each of these and give them a data type.
And account with 255.
Yeah, I think they're all 255, aren't they?
And
Except the key, which is an int.
are we going to do equals null for the? Oh, I guess there's no apartment.
We can do equal null for some of those.
For the apartment?
Yeah, so we'll do invarchar 255, which is pretty much for anything. For apartment can equal null. Nothing else really should, although we could do, so let's do, I'm going to copy this down. Oh, undo. the wrong key.
Nancy?
I'm just looking for the undo. All right, edit undo. All right. I just want to copy this.
Put out all the other ones?
Yeah, except for the last one.
Because that's an int?
Right. Now, we could, and then so this one would be int. We could, if you want, like the city, typically we could say equal Seattle. That doesn't mean it has to equal Seattle. That just means if you don't enter anything else, it will be Seattle.
So that's the default.
That's the default. And we can do the same with the state. So if you don't put in a state, you get Washington by default. The others really you can't do that for. I'm just tabbing them over for looks. And then I'm going to do as, and that's the start of the. Now, you could do person key here. And the reason why I say that is so, again, if you were doing this from a web page and calling this from a web page, their key could be in a session variable. So you could just pass that through. If they've logged in, you know, their key could be stored in a session variable. You could just pass it through. So they don't have to do anything. It can be tied to their key. You would want it to be very specific. You wouldn't want it to be based on last name or first name or anything else. Now, the emails are unique, so you could base it on their email, right? Because they are unique in the database, but you want to make sure that you're limiting it to that one person, whatever you do. I'm just going to leave as person key. So this is actually pretty simple. I'm just going to say update person address, and I'll tab it over just to keep the symmetry here. So I'm going to set person address apartment equals at person address apartment. I'm not sure how the nulls work here, so we'll have to see. And then
Do that for each one of them?
yeah,
For
so
the
we're
street?
basically, we're just going to say person address street. So if they don't change anything, then it'll just be the same, right? It'll overwrite, but it'll be the same. Person address state equals at person address state. And person address zip equals at person address zip. And then we just say where person key equals at person key. This actually would probably work if we wanted to do some more tests on this. Yeah.
So what this is doing is allowing a person to go into person address and change their information.
And change their information.
And it'll update.
Right, and it'll only do it for that person key, so it's guaranteed to have it. And you could, if you wanted to, do another test, although I don't think you need it with the person key, where you could check how many rows are returned. And then if the rows returned were more than one, then you could cancel it all. But I don't think one needs to because of the person key, and it won't go without the person key, I don't think. The person key is required. But as I said, if you want to be super safe, do I know how to do this? Okay. I'm just thinking. You could boot, so I'm going to just see if let's do I'm not entirely sure how to get the count of the rows. Declare. Yeah. I'll look at it and we could look at it because I really can't see how they could cause any problems with this.
Do we need to put mtran or we're not?
If we do, we would, yeah. One of the things you could put here, so let's do begin try. And then we do commit tran, and then catch, begin catch. So we do end try, begin catch. So if there's an error, but I can't actually see how an error would occur in this. Rollback tran. And for our purposes, we'll say print error message and then end catch.
People have seen after error message. Is that simply denote that it can be? What does that denote?
That it's a function.
But there's no parameter inside, or
Yeah, so it doesn't take any parameters, but it does.
Oh, okay.
You know, it might there actually might be an overload where it does take a parameter, like if you wanted to return the message for a particular error. I don't know actually if it will allow that. So if there's any error here, it will do that. But I can't see how there could be an error here. Actually, I do know one. No, that wouldn't cause an error either. Even if it's a person key that doesn't exist, it would just not do anything. It would just not update anything. The other thing about this begin try, one of the places where you're most likely to have an error is here, although within varchar, not so much. If you've entered the wrong data type, it will crash, but it will crash before you get here. So it'll actually just crash. And there's no way to put a try catch in your parameter list. So the try catches doesn't do much, but we'll put it there anyway. So I'm just going to execute this. Creates that. So let's try to update. And then I'm just going to look at a person, select star from person address. I just want to look at it to see who I want to update. Do we want to just do it one? Just update person one?
Yeah.
All right. So if we do this, we want to do exec USP update address. And I can should be able to get from the stored procedures. I'm going to refresh that. So I have update address there, and I could drag the parameters over. And again, I'm going to break them so they're down below.
Hi, Steve.
Yeah.
I just have a couple of questions and watch the video later. I need to set up my laptop so I can work at home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in a moment I will.
Yes.
All right, so we have to give these values, not an as. Being this.
No, hold on.
Okay.
Take your time. Just let me.
So let's give them an apartment. Let's just say 101 or maybe 304. So we'll just give it an apartment. The street we want to be the same, but we have to re-enter it. So I'm going to copy it. Make an equal sign.
Is there a way to set it so that it would default to?
I don't know. I might look in that. I'm going to leave out city and state because they're defaulted. The zip code was 98001. And the person key is 1. I'll try to show you in a moment what happens if you try to do it without a person key. So we've got 1 row affected, which is good. If I look at there, they have an apartment, right? 304. Everything else is the same. If I don't do a person key, if I just do these, it'll give me an error that I have to, actually, first it gives me the comma error. Let's just take that out. It says that person key is required, right? Because it doesn't have a default. So, okay. Does that make sense in general? Just had to try catching that as extra.
Okay, my question is here.
Be right there.
And I want to work on them. I'm still here. So go to the community assist, go to view database and script the view as. I want to do this part, but when I go to my database, go to view, I don't have the data. And also I already download.
What view? What are we talking about?
So I'm working on the assignment 7, modify data.
Right.
And first I have the script.
Well, so you might have to create the view first, right? Didn't we create it before?
I don't have this column. This
Right, it should have.
table view.
I have a.
Whole table view here. See,
Those are all system views. Go up in a different folder. Go all the way to the top. So close that
close this one.
and just look at views.
Views.
So you don't have any views. So you have to try to make it first. It's nothing to script.
How do I make a view?
Just to create a view. We did those.
Create view.
I don't have community access. I don't know why I tried to run this game. I don't have community access. It's on your data schema thing. I tried to run it from there.
Well, you can't run it from there. You have to paste it into.
Yeah, I know. It's one of where, yeah.
Did it work? No. Why didn't it work?
So to create view is this way means use this way to create view.
So there isn't a way to create a new view. It's a way to look at a view that's already there.
They're already there.
Yeah, so I'll look at it a little bit in a moment here. I have one more thing to cover. So if the view isn't there, you can't script it.
I can't script it.
Yeah. I think I was just trying to save you having to retype it.
Type it. Because I remember on the class you did not create a
We created views. You did it though on server 38, right?
server 38. You create it first.
We created views. We did it with,
It has a view.
it was part of the table expressions thing. All right. Are we sort of ready for triggers?
Yeah, I just, it doesn't really matter why this doesn't work, I wasn't able to run, but I just wanted to tell you, use some reason, but equals. I mean, every, we typed everything, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, don't put a set on every line.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Thank you. And I noticed it.
So it's not showing an area, that's fine.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, there should be, no, that's not up to the line. That should be better. Yeah, it's still not running. Do you not have permission?
I'm trying to figure out why it's like all right up.
I can't.
I didn't do,
I'll try to,
voice crack.
I'll get David to do that.
I don't know.
I've tried to get permission, it won't allow me, I have to get David to do that. I don't think he's here yet.
Okay.
But I mean, I can get it at home, I just.
Yeah, I don't know why, it's not giving it to you there. Are we ready for triggers? Do you have another error?
Go into
Nope.
SQL Express. Right, we're using Express.
We are for this one, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And you may not have permissions. Were you here when the day that they gave?
The permission to what?
To create things in the local.
I was,
So maybe just keep on server 38 for now.
okay.
But she's having an error because she's using person address, and that's from
Community
Community
Assist, which
And
should be on,
she ran and used Community Assist, and it's not pulling.
No, it's not, I don't have a
exist.
database here. I know the actually on it, but I'll leave it.
38.
Yeah.
Did somebody delete Community Assist from 38?
I was on 38 earlier, and I had the same problem. I just went to Express.
All right, so let me fix that real quickly.
Who has permission to delete it?
All of you do. That's a problem. We've been trying to create it, I mean, because we wanted you to work on it, so you have permissions in those contexts. And you have admin permissions in that database, so. Real quickly, I'm going to connect it to server 38. And I will re-add Community Assist if it isn't there.
I only did like 3.
Why would anybody delete Community
I just
Assist?
my imagination.
They probably didn't do it on purpose.
I don't have a database.
Wasn't me.
And I just tried to work, so it's my imagination.
I don't know. Let's see what do I have in downloads? Do I still have? I may have just got it from the.
Steve, I have a real statement here with me. And but it's a,
Are we in Community Assist?
So we're in Community Assist. I do want you to do this locally if you can, which I think most of you can. But why didn't it go to GitHub? There it is. Yeah, it's not on the. So I'm going to copy.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Did you not use Community Assist before you did this? I just keep this procedure.
Nice.
I had run it previously, so I.
But it shows that it's here.
I'm trying to
Community
see.
Assist.
That's what I'm.
Well, you have it locally, right? So.
But I'm on
On the wrong.
SQL Express.
Yes.
For some reason, I can't actually run it.
Well, I'm not sure if that.
Oh, wait. Like that line for all.
Hi, Steve,
You guys
you
are
have
bringing me bad
second?
luck. I'm just gonna put it on you guys. I'm gonna shut
All right.
my own
You have
person.
second, you have my view.
Yeah, I got a billion things to do yet.
I'm sorry.
Steve, you're bad luck.
Here's my
Yeah,
view,
that's it.
this one here,
Yeah.
and I got, I run this one.
I only feel I know.
You and Alex.
So, oh, so I don't have to,
Yeah.
it wasn't nothing.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you just say, refresh, okay, thanks.
Okay. So let's do triggers, which was the point of today. I wanted to give you more time to work.
This was good though, because
Okay.
really, at least some people, thank you for explaining.
So there's two of you that don't have community assist. You could try to use this 38. I just don't want everybody, what? Oh, well, community assist is there now, if you refresh.
So you want us to be on?
You might have to reconnect.
Yeah, I figured that.
Let's look at refresh on David. There, it's there.
Yes. Because I don't understand.
All right, so I put community assist back. It's a nice thing about having a script, but I don't know why it went away. All right, so I'm going to go back.
You'd rather that we be running local.
Yes, for this one, for the trigger, it's better to do local by far.
There's like a security reason I couldn't access from PSS.
Oh, I know why.
Could you like manually add me?
So the other thing I have to do, since somebody deleted that, so where is server 38?
I'm sorry, oh, keep checking it out.
All right, so let me close this down. I'll fix it. I know why. I have to add,
Oh, got it, thanks.
I have to do everybody as users. So this is server 38. Refresh. Community assist. Actually, let's just go to logins. Security, logins, SQL users, properties, user mapping, community is, all right, community assist. Probably shouldn't make you do this. Shouldn't make
Thank you so much.
you. Oh, no problem.
Yes, I'm
Sorry, it
watching
was a little.
So I will watch the video at home.
You have this.
We are not even on. I know that.
So you make review today, right?
What? Yeah, I'm making a video and
Post it on-
I will post it.
Great, thanks. Bye, guys.
All right, you should have permission in community assist now.
Thank you.
All right. So you should have permission now. Okay, so triggers. A trigger is a lot like a stored procedure, except that it is triggered by an event. Do we have time for this? Yeah. And the usual events for these okay. The usual events for these are insert, update, or delete. Although you can do it on execute, and you can also do them on drop. You can do them on create. So you can execute triggers on a lot of things. Triggers have no parameters. That means you can't pass in any values in, unlike a stored procedure. Does that make sense? Because they happen, you know, on the fly whenever the event occurs. Okay. So there's a couple of other just quickie notes. There's triggers that happen for an event. And they can say after or it can say for. And there's triggers that happen instead of an event. Okay, what happens if it's for an event is that the event occurs, the insert occurs, the update occurs, the delete occurs, and the trigger does what it's supposed to do. If it's instead of an event, it intercepts the action and doesn't allow it to happen and does what the trigger says instead of the insert, update, or delete. So if you wanted to prevent deletions on a thing until you had looked at it, let's do a real simple one. And I'll do it on person again. So I'm going to do.
It looks like you're writing this in the bottom of the create script. Do you want it?
Oh no, I don't want to do it there. Am I on server 38? Let me just copy this. There we go. Comments. Okay. I'm going to do create trigger, and the triggers are always on a particular table. I'm going to give this name. I'll call it TR. I guess you could call it use trigger, UTR or something. Trigger. What do I want to call it? Delete. Person delete. On person, I'm going to say instead delete. So we're creating a trigger, giving it this name. It's going to be on the table person. Triggers are always on a particular table. Instead of delete means that it's going to intercept the delete and not allow it to happen. So I'm going to do as, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to say if, I'm going to write the deletions that people do to a table, and then later I can figure out if I want them to actually be deleted. Does that make sense?
What did you say?
I'm going to write the deletions that people do if to a table. And what I'm going to do right now is check to see if that table exists. And type select name from sys.tables where name, I'm going to break that line, equals, and then we're going to call this table person delete or something. Okay. So if this doesn't exist, then we need to create it. So this is the begin of the if, end of the if, and in between it we need to create the table. I know a quick way to do this. Would it be better if I just wrote it out? I'll show you the quick way. Maybe I shouldn't. It'll probably cause more confusion than it'll save. I'm going to go to the table person. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say script table as create to new query window. And then I'm just going to copy this part.
Sorry, where did you go to the top?
Yeah, I said it would be worse. I right clicked. I said script table as create to new query window, editor window.
Script table
You want
as
the create table.
create to, what was the last one?
New query window. And what it does is it scripts that. So I can just copy the create statement there. I don't need the primary key, actually. I'm going to Control C. I'm going to go back to my other script wherever it was. That's the wrong place. That's the wrong place. There it is. I'm going to like put it in here. So I'm not going to do the identity, and I'm not going to make it I'm not going to give the table a primary key. Because it's just going to be a reference table for me to tell whether or not anything that people want to delete, I'm going to write to this table to look at. And I'm just saying, if it doesn't exist, then create it.
We don't need primary key clustered.
No, we don't need
Just
anything.
the
I'm not
created.
going to do any primary keys. I'm not going to do any of that other stuff.
So then you change it to this table.
Oh, yes, I do want to change it. Thank you. So instead of person, we need to call it person delete. And the brackets could go away if you want. The reason why you script something that always puts things in brackets is that it doesn't know if you wrote legal names or not. The InVarchar, I think those work fine in brackets also. I'm pretty sure if you ran that, it would work just fine, but I'll get rid of them. Okay, so if this table doesn't exist, we'll create it. This all happens on delete. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert into person delete. And then I want all those fields again. So better to list them. So I'm going to do person key, last name, first name. I'm going to press enter to person first name. Person, what comes after email? Password. I don't know if we need their password, but I'll take it anyway. Person password seed. We probably don't need the last two. Oh, entry date, yes. Thank you. And then the password seed. Okay, so we're going to do that, and we're going to select all of these. So same fields. All right, but where we're going to get this is from deleted. Which should be fine, despite the fact that it's not finding them. That should be fine. Does anybody know what deleted is? Because I haven't told you.
Is that where the stored? Is it temporarily stored when it's being?
Right, actually, that's exactly right. It's a temp table in the temp database that stores deletions and updates. Okay, so the delete, one of the things, these temp tables exist literally for milliseconds, but because we're in process, we can use it. There's another table which we can also use called inserted. There's two temp tables. There's inserted and there's delete. So do you need it up a little higher for the top? I think I can get it all in here. I haven't run it yet. Almost can get it all in here. So this is instead of, right? So we may have to insert a person to be able to delete a person. I don't know. We won't let you insert any, delete somebody anyway if they have child records. So I'm going to run this create trigger. I mean, first I'm going to just execute it. I'll give you a minute. So this is a point. What parts don't make sense?
So you're making a table?
I'm making a
for
table
people
to store.
The deleted people.
Yeah, it's
right?
going to make a copy. So it's actually not going to delete them from the table, but it's going to make a copy of them into this table so that I could review it later as an administrator and say, do I want to actually delete them or not?
Oh, mine's not running.
And that is an alternative to the table deleted because it has the same structure.
Well, the deleted table only exists for a millisecond.
Got it.
You,
Okay.
you wouldn't be able to review.
It doesn't even show up in the log then?
No. Well, you can't review the content of the log.
Okay.
Doesn't like begin. Let's go back up. If not exist. Get rid of
Oh,
that.
this
How you doing,
one.
John?
Get rid of that.
Alright.
That's
Cool.
Larry.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
How are you?
Can you actually
I'm
bring the
awake.
page just slide? I was trying to see
You
what
can
else.
sleep.
What?
Yeah,
I didn't
no,
hear the last
I got
time
like
you said.
4 hours of sleep. I was studying and stuff before I came in, so I had this stuff for breakfast.
Get rid of the.
Yeah. I'm just trying to install.
Oh, you mind repeating?
I'm to reinstall it.
All right,
I
so.
might know, but if you could do.
So we're checking to see if this table exists. This table is just going to be to store. Now, if you created this table from the beginning, you probably wouldn't have to do this. But this, if nobody's ever deleted anything, not this table might not exist. So this checks to see if the table exists. If the table doesn't exist, it creates it, but only if it doesn't exist. And then it's going to insert the field that was going to be deleted from the deleted table into this table. It's not a temp table. I could have made it a temp table, but again, you might never see it depending on your session.
So what this is doing is any information from a person that's being deleted, it puts in this table called.
Right, and it doesn't actually, because it's instead of, it doesn't actually allow the deletion to happen. So you can look at this table as an administrator and say, do I really want this person deleted? And if they do want to be deleted, you can suspend this trigger and actually delete them. You can actually turn these triggers off and on. I'll try to remember the syntax for doing that. The other thing I want to show you, this trigger will happen every time there's a deletion, right? Every single
Because
time.
it's saying don't delete instead of their info.
Right, and because it's instead of delete, it'll be always every time anybody types a delete on this table. So I'm going to zoom to show you where the trigger would be. So because they're on individual tables, see, we have person and then we have triggers. Oh, so I have to refresh. Oh, did I run this? I thought I ran this. Don't tell me I ran it on server 38. Oh, that's server 38, that's why. All right, so let's close stored procedure, close functions, look at tables.
So just as you can create a trigger, you can drop a trigger as well?
Yes, you can drop a trigger. And you can also just, which is another way to suspend it, but you can also suspend it. That's not what I wanted to do.
Suspend it as in allow,
So if you really wanted to delete,
you just delete everything that you want to delete.
and then you reactivate the trigger.
Okay.
So triggers, and there it is, person delete. So triggers, a couple of things about triggers. They often are used to enforce business rules that you can't enforce other ways. The next trigger I'll make, and it'll be the last one because we've used up all your time, will be, we'll do one to, like, if somebody asks for more money than the maximum, to either alert it or cut it back to the max, I don't know. But you can use them to do that. But you don't want a whole bunch of triggers fired. You have to be a little bit careful where you place them. Now, a stored procedure, like if I had a trigger on insert and I ran a stored procedure that inserted, the stored procedure would also cause the trigger to fire. And it fires literally every time. If you did it on the insert, it will fire every single insert into the table. When MySQL, when they were making it, they were debating a few years back, maybe about 5 years back, whether or not to allow triggers. Somebody said that if you're not smart about triggers, they're like popcorn going on. But they are also very useful. So let's run this trigger. And the way you run this trigger, let me zoom out again, is you just do a deletion statement. We just need to delete somebody. So one of the things I need to do is, and I'm doing a from person. I just need to look at the people. I also need, and this is harder, we need a person that doesn't have any child records, because otherwise it won't allow me to delete them anyway. Do I have an address in here? I probably do, because let's just do an insert, a real quick insert into person. And I think to save a minute, I'm going to actually go up in here. Well, let's just insert into person. We have a stored procedure for this, but I don't want to. All right, so I'll get all the fields. I'm going to go to person, just drag in the columns. I'll split that up so you can see. Again, you can't insert person key. I'm not going to enter the password or the seed. They're nullable. I don't have to enter them. So I'm just going to do values, person last name, not here long, person first name, person email, we're going to delete this person, obviously. The get date is the current date. All right, so I'm going to run that. And it says one row affected. So if I select person, we'll see there is a person at the end. It has a null for the password and a null for the seed, but otherwise it's there. So I'm going to delete from person where person key equals 132. So this is a legitimate delete. It would let me delete it. Going to execute it. Notice it says 2 rows affected. But if I look at person, not here long is still there. They didn't get deleted. But if I look at select star from person deleted, person delete was the name of my table. And there it is. It created the table and it copied that record there. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm not sure it makes sense as a trigger. I'm not sure it makes sense as a business rule. But in terms of the logic of what we did.
So if an administrator wanted to then okay everything in person delete table, you could do a delete from person where person key from person delete.
You could do that, right? Yeah, where it's in. Yeah.
You can match up the keys from the deleted table to the person table to okay.
To okay the deletes, yeah. And you could actually do it, select star from, or delete from person where person key in, select, do a subquery,
Okay.
select person key from person delete. So you could do that. Now, to do that, you'd have to suspend the thing. And I'm not sure if I remember how to suspend the trigger. I could look it up real quick, but we'll do it. It's really something, the word, what I'm missing is the actual word. Is suspend,
Disable trigger.
disable, is that it? Just disable trigger. Okay. And then you enable trigger to get it going again. So let's do, if you guys want, the other trigger, I just wanted to mention, so I don't know if I want to do a whole new one. Yeah, question?
I'm having errors. I'm not sure what or why. Let's give me.
Cannot create trigger person delete because instead of delete trigger always it's create trigger person one person and student delete.
Is it because I named it the same source?
Well, it shouldn't matter if you're doing it locally. Are you doing it locally? Yes. Yeah. So it shouldn't matter. But it does say it already exists. Did it run once?
Mm-hmm.
Then that's all you can.
Okay, so if I try to insert,
It should. Invalid object deleted. Oh, you know what? You might not. So alter your trigger. And copy down through. And this should be insert into person delete. So, well, actually, no, that should be person. It's from here. You need to copy from here up to the alter trigger. I think you left out the last insert when you copied it.
what?
I mean, copy from here all the way. Select from here.
420.
From deleted.
Okay, all the way to.
All the way to alter trigger.
Run it.
Yeah. Okay, now do the insert down here. Oh, we need to, so it's already there. So now do the delete. What?
Line 453 doesn't exist. That's why I was confused.
Yeah. Double click it. Usually it goes in here. Let's go up above.
Well,
Get rid of the person. Oh, no, that's okay. Get rid of the identity. And the 1-1. And then alter the trigger again. And then finish it.
so run that to the end.
Yeah, down to there. Now just go to the delete. There we go.
Okay, and then I can select it and it shows it. Oh, great. Okay.
So the reason why I wasn't doing is you can't insert into an auto number, and you declared that the first column is an auto number.
Right. I understand because those are generated in
Yeah.
So
mathematical.
you can never insert an int key.
If you made it an auto number, right, you can't insert into it. If you just made it an int, then you have to insert into it. But if you make it an identity, if you make it an auto generated, you can't insert into it.
Are you gonna put, because I didn't copy your.
I will post it, yes.
Okay, on the blog?
Probably. Most of these I've done on the blog. I don't know if we have time. Maybe we have time for one more. Do you want one more?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do this one instead of on. Instead of, we'll do it for, which is more typical rather than. So I'm going to create trigger. And what this trigger is going to do is it's going to check to see if their request is larger than the maximum allowed. Because there's a max on the thing. So I'm going to create a trigger, tr, check max. All right. This will be a little, so, and it'll be on grant request. Yeah.
Do you have to like, is there, do you do TR just as a naming standard?
It's just a naming convention.
Okay.
Something tell me it's a trigger. But you can name it however you want. Oh. So we'll do it just for insert. That means that it'll allow the insert to happen, but it does something. What do we want to do with the results if it is larger? Do we want to write it to a table again?
That's the only scenario that we have in our model. Right?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess we could create a table. So actually, so we want to say if exist, if does, if not exists. Select name from sys.tables where name equals, what do we want to name our table? What?
Max, something about max amount or overage or.
Yeah, over max. Okay, so if this doesn't exist, then we want to create the table. So I'm not going to put everything that's in grant request there. I probably want the person key, the grant type key, so the date, I probably want the date. So they don't have to have the same name, so, but I'll do it anyway. Request date, date. Person key, int. I guess grant type, that's important. Grant type key. I have two T's there, and I don't have two T's in the other one. Interesting. We don't need the explanation, but we do need the amount. Maybe we want the explanation. I don't know. Do you want the explanation?
Why is it not grant request date and just request date?
It can be whatever you want.
Okay.
I mean, you can make a match if you want, which probably. I guess we'll do the explanation too. We probably have to have it nullable. It's nullable in the other, so it might not be there. The others shouldn't be. That's it for the table. Okay, so we have to figure out where the max, what the max is, right? So I am going to declare a variable. At grant max. And it will be money. And I'm going to declare a variable called grant type, and it'll be an int. No semicolons. This is my C# sneaking in. Even in a environment where semicolons are required, they wouldn't be until the end, right? So I've got these two variables, and what I want to do is I'm going to select at grant type equals grant type key from inserted. All right, because this is happening on insert, and inserted is like deleted. It's a temp table that exists for insertions. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the grant type key from that, and then we're going to select at grant, that's an at, max equals, and I need to look at the table here. This is for grant type in the columns, grant type life. We'll just do grant type maximum. We won't worry about the lifetime maximum. Grant type maximum. From grant type, where grant type key grant type key equals at grant type. Does that make sense? So we're going to figure out what the grant type is by getting it from the inserted table. They just inserted that. And then we're going to go to the grant type table to figure out what the maximum is for that. If, what? Oh, okay. If request amount, so actually we need to get that too. There at so we need to get that from inserted as well. So it equals the grant request amount. Yeah. Does that does this syntax sort of make sense to you or no? We're assigning a variable from a select query. So we're selecting from inserted, we're getting the grant type key, and it gets assigned to the variable. This is different than the set. One reason I wanted to do this other trigger is to show you this other way of assigning values. So you can assign values to a variable in a select statement. I think that's correct. So we've got all of those things. Now we can compare. If grant amount, or actually if, what is it, if at request amount is greater than at grant max, right, and then begin, and those are the curly braces for the if. If that's the case, we want to insert into overmax, and we need all those fields. Let me bring this down. It'd be nice if I could see the fields. So it's request date, person key, grant type key, explanation, and request amount. Now, so we need to do,
We need values in there now?
no, we're going to select, we're going to insert it with the select.
Okay.
And we have to use, this time we have to use the grant request date. We have to use the actual field names for the grant request date, person key, grant type key, grant request explanation, grant request amount. I want this from inserted. Okay, and I think that's the whole trigger. Did I misspell anything?
Yes.
Grant request.
Yeah, it's the A after that.
The A after the
An explanation.
explanation. And grant type key, that's true. I didn't have two T's there for whatever reason. All right. So walking down from the top, and then I'll give you a moment. This is for insert, so the insert will happen. Okay, and it happens on the table grant request. We're checking to see if the table overmax exists. If not, we'll make it. We get some values so that we can compare them. So I created the variables up here, the maximum for the grant, the type of the grant, and the amount being requested. We get those values from inserted or from grant type, depending. So we're going to get the grant type key that they're asking for from the inserted table. We're going to use it to figure out what the maximum is in the grant type table. And then we'll figure out what their request amount is, and then we'll compare it. If their request amount is greater than the grant max, then we'll insert it into this table. Let's see if it happens. So first I need to run the trigger to save it. So the trigger is there. And I'm actually going to I want to see what the grant maxes are. So I'm going to select star from grant type. I have no idea what the grant maximums are. So let's say food is the top is, let's do the 200 is the top, max for one loan. 1,000 for the lifetime. Okay, yeah. It's not running. What is the error?
Inserting, I'm not sure, but I had to stop watching you because I tried. So when you inserted the trigger, I went from here to here. Is that correct or not?
That we should do all of it.
Including all the way down.
Right.
It was,
Okay, so you might have to.
nothing happened.
Oh, so I did right. So yeah. Okay, so there's an error.
Yeah.
Then it should build. Did yours make it okay?
Yeah, everything's good.
So let's do a food. So I'm going to insert into grant request. So just going to get the columns. See ya. I'm just breaking them so that they're on the screen better. And we can't insert into grant request key, so that goes away. The values, I'm just going to do get date, so it'll do the current date. Person key, I'm just going to do person 1. Has to be an existing person key. Food, the grant type key is 1, so it'll be food. Explanation, I don't know, always hungry. And then the amount is going to be 300, which is over the allowed amount.
Is the reason why those numbers aren't in the literal is because it takes numbers, no problem?
Yeah, it'll take numbers. What do you mean in the literal?
The single quotes?
Yeah, so numbers you don't have to. If it's a number, you don't have to quote it.
Strings are fine, and it looks like doubles are fine also?
Yes.
Okay.
Or integers are fine. Any number is fine, not to be quoted. Strings have to be quoted, and dates have to be quoted. So I'm going to do this insert, and it should create 2 inserts, right?
Can you wait a second?
Sure.
Does it have to be quoted if you
I thought were
format?
gonna use the mouse. That's fine.
What?
Do dates have to be quoted? if
Dates
they're
have to be quoted.
even if they're formatted before you put it in there, but before you put format in parentheses?
They still have to be quoted.
Okay.
The actual date.
Okay.
That varies database database management system to database management system. In Oracle, you have to write the word date in front of the date. All right, so let's do select star from over max. And we'll see that it wrote that. Did you have another error, or do you have a?
Yeah, a while ago.
Okay, I could come look.
So I don't really understand what we're doing with this one. What are we're checking?
So
on?
there's a maximum amount for a loan. So if they're requesting something more than the maximum amount, it's writing them to this table. You could do other things.
It's also writing to grant.
It's also writing them to grant, right? So if we go to select star from grant request.
It'll be added to this new table if they request the maximum grant amount.
If they request greater than the maximum, oops, yeah, I got space in there. So the very last grant is the one we just made, always hungry, $300. So it actually inserted it, right? But it also inserted it in over max.
Can you scroll up to beginning to insert into overmaps?
Let's see.
Down.
What is for insert?
For insert means that this occurs every single time there's an insert. Now, if they're not over the max, it still fires. The trigger still fires. It just doesn't write it to the database, the table. A trigger will fire every single time. So every single time anybody inserts into this table, this trigger will fire. It will only write to the other table if it meets the criteria inside. But it will fire for every single thing. And it's not backwards, so it won't go and check what's in the database already.
So on a table that's getting written to frequently, would this slow it down to the point where?
It is something you'd have to test. Triggers generally don't take much time. But you could, if you were having performance problems, try it with and without the trigger.
Is there a trigger that we could create that would show all triggers occurring?
No, although you can watch that anyway. There's a monitor software that's built into SQL Server. We're not doing it because it's more in the admin, but you can actually see everything that's happening. You
Okay.
can see every login, you can see every trigger that's firing, you can see every stored procedure that's firing, you can see everything that's going on.
You mentioned that it's like
It's kind of like one of those sci-fi things, so it just scrolls all the time. Even if you're not doing anything, it just scrolls because it's constantly doing background checks of things.
You had mentioned that it's like popcorn if you create too many of them and you're unaware of what you've got going
Right,
on.
well, because a trigger could cause another trigger, right? If a trigger
True, yeah.
and a stored procedure can spark a trigger, and so if I had a trigger on, for whatever god awful reason, on overmax, this trigger could cause that trigger to fire. I mean, you could have triggers that fire triggers that.
If the trigger on overmax was an insert in your grant request.
Yeah, and the thing is that people may not know, particularly if multiple people are working on the database, they may not be aware of what triggers are where. And so you could be triggering triggers unintentionally. And again, if enough of that happens, performance can be an issue.
Because of the amount of memory taken?
Well, just the amount of things happening in the process.
Okay. And
Well, so when you insert it,
could you make it?
no, we'll just take the.
This is like the end of what you've already talked about, so.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
I mean, I understand. But it's, I see what you're doing. Like
Could you make an if statement with triggers in it?
I don't think so. You really can't manually cause a trigger.
Well, this is manual.
Well, but it's only on an insert. It's on every single insert into that trigger.
Oh, I understand.
So it's triggered by an event, and the event is insert. Right?
And when you, so when you say,
But there's no way to just execute it. The only way to execute it is to create an insert. Yes, it is.
And then you said that we're going to do the last.
If people that did the last two assignments we'll do together.
Like next week.
Yeah, let's do them. Let's get them done and then leave the last bit for catching up, finishing.
so what assignments are we doing together next week?
We're going to do the XML and the admin one.
XML and admin. So okay, great.
We'll do them together. So if you're here, maybe I'll announce that in Canvas.
That'll probably be good for people.
It'll save you some time.
Full classroom.
Yeah,
You're
it won't be full. There's only like 12 people in here.
Ken for capstone.
So I'm going to post this in just a second too, but people that didn't do their Blackboard thing or whiteboard could show up today. If you,
And then I talked to my parents. I'm actually gonna be in town for a week, the week after.
Oh,
So
okay.
I can present for the
Okay,
thing.
so you're just going that 1 week before?
Yeah, whatever that actual week is. That week before like summer starts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me post this on the blog real quick. And then,
Thank you.
no problem. And if I'm going too fast, it's okay to slow me up.
Well, yeah, but I feel like we're behind, so.
Yeah, but it's okay. If we don't finish, we'll finish because we'll do the 2 things. It's just a matter of how much lab time you guys are gonna have. And I want to give you as much as possible. So if we finish, we might be able to do both assignments on Monday. And then the rest of the time will be open lab and catch up.
Thank you. So you make you create your trigger, and then before is what is the
It
event?
tells it what the event to use. So the difference is that before happens every time, but the event actually occurs. It always will insert no matter what. But then this also fires for every insert. The instead of means that it intercepts the event and keeps it from occurring. So the delete didn't happen, right? The delete never actually happened for the first trigger that we did. Oops.